am the head of football in a multi-club football manager save. In the last episode, we started with our two teams, one in the Bundesliga, spineless Wolfsburg, and one in Austria, spineless Wolfsberger. In the first couple of seasons, it was all about rebuilding these squads in the image of me, the head of football. I was looking to instill a tactical philosophy, bring in young players, and set up the clubs to begin to start dominating in Europe. And it was a good start. We qualified for the Champions League with both teams. We actually won the league twice in a row with spineless Wolfsberger. Today, though, we ramp it up a notch because not only are both teams competing in the Champions League, but we've added a third team. Welcome to the network, Wolverhampton Wanderers. This save, it's so much fun. It's time to get into our next season. Come on. And so we have expanded into the Premier League, and now Kolo Touré is our manager at Wolves. It means that we've now got three clubs in our spineless energy empire. We have Anton Clayts at Wolfsburg, Manny Fanny at spineless Wolfsberger, and now Kolo Touré at Wolverhampton Wanderers. The date is the 2nd of September 2025. It means we're heading into our third season of the save, and I've just completed our transfer business for this third season. Now, I've done a lot of business, so a lot of today's episode is going to be transfer stuff. But if you're like me, you love transfer stuff. Transfers are probably my favourite part of playing Football Manager, and a save like this just leans into it so heavily. Oh, it's fun. But to show you the transfer business, I'm actually going to start with spineless Wolfsburg. They're the team that sit at the top of the hierarchy right now. And that's interesting because now that we've brought Wolves into the network, you'd imagine that Wolves may be able to go above Wolfsburg because of the Premier League money and the opportunities that are going to be afforded to them because of that. But right now, Wolves have only just been promoted to the Premier League. So they're supposed to avoid relegation for this season, whereas spineless Wolfsburg have now finished second in the Bundesliga for 2 seasons in a row, and they're in the Champions League. They are very much the flagship club of this entire project. We then have spineless Wolfsberger, who are the feeder club, but technically now they're also in the Champions League. So we've got this weird situation going on where we need to kind of establish a bit of an order here. Now, in my mind, I'm kind of thinking that Wolfsburg will stay at the top of the hierarchy for at least a little while. And then maybe if there is a changing of the guard between Wolves and Wolfsburg, perhaps then Wolves become the top team. Or maybe we add extra teams into the mix at that stage. Or maybe they can all simultaneously exist and not really have too much of a hierarchy. It'll be instead about trying to move players to get the best out of all of the teams, if you catch my drift a little bit. It's part of what makes this save so unique and so different. Right now, though, I'm going to start with Wolfsburg because as the club at the top of the hierarchy, they are the team that's going to have the most movement between players, between them and the other players. So I think if I go through the transfer business here, it will already give a bit of an idea about some of the transfer business at the other clubs. So heading into season number 3, this is the Wolfsburg squad, and it's as strong as it possibly can be right now. Let's start from the back. We have Noah Atabola, who continues as our goalkeeper. We have Vinicius Tobias, or Tobias as I call him, but somebody did correct me. It should be Tobias. I'll probably still say Tobias accidentally, but I'm going to try. Tobias as our right back. Now, he was a controversial one. We moved him from Wolfsberger to Wolfsburg mid-season, and I saw somebody say, UEFA are going to be on your case now after that Tobias transfer. And I just thought in my mind, I've already done the next transfer window. If they're on my case for this one, we might all be going to jail because there's been some suspicious, iffy behaviour between the three clubs here. Again, though, it's what makes this save so unique, isn't it? And yeah, I've moved a lot of players between the three clubs. In fact, when we live stream this over on Twitch, twitch.tv/Clayts, by the way, if you did want to come and join us live over on Twitch, we're about to start a new season. I don't want to spoil anything, obviously, but we're about to start a new season. So this video will come out on the Friday. On the Sunday, I'll be live streaming this save at about 10 a.m. on Sunday, and it will be for a new season. It will be a transfer stream where we'll be doing and using all of the spreadsheets that I use to try and build the teams that we're using. So if you wanted to come and watch live, that'd be a great time and a great place to come and do so. However, there will be another video of this on Monday to get you pretty much completely caught up to where I've got to live, if all that makes sense. If you're not a live stream person, if you're not a Twitch person, don't worry about this. That's why I'm bringing you these videos here on YouTube, because I feel like it's a really fun, exciting, interesting save, and I felt like you guys would want to come along on the journey with me. And looking at the reception to the first video, that seems to be the case. So I'll say right now, thank you so much for all of the comments and for you guys enjoying that first video. It keeps me being able to do what I do, so I appreciate you guys. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. There we go. Anyway, moving on. Tobias is our right back. Our defensive partnership has been massively upgraded now. Robert Renan joined previously, But alongside him, I have spent big on one of my favourite players in FM24, I'm going to be honest with you. He is very me. If you've watched this channel for long enough now, in fact, if you've watched at least one video on this channel before now, you will know that Christian Mosquera fits the bill as far as I'm concerned as a player. I was going to say as a defender, but for any player. He's 6'3". He's really, he can jump, 16 jumping reach, and he's pretty quick. And if you have those three things, you're going to be in my team, and I'm going to spend big money on you. And I just think for the future, to be one of our ball-playing defenders, this man, who's only 22, so he also fits the bill in that regard too. He's going to improve. He's going to get better. He's probably my most sought-after centre-back that I could go and sign. And that's why, this is going to get you, that's why I've spent £74 million on him. Now, I want you to take into account the money that we're spending here. I know that one of my club values was to try and be financially responsible. Wolfsburg aren't the first season Wolfsburg anymore. This is a Wolfsburg team that has finished second twice and been in the Champions League for a season now, going into their second season of Champions League football. This is a team that has financial backing from the new spineless energy group that's behind them. This is a team that is really ambitious as part of this network. I think spending money is going to be a part of this. Now, that may be a departure from the way that you play Football Manager. It may not sit too comfortably with you spending a lot of money. However, I want you to try and filter that through what this save is all about and how we're having fun with it, and try and be open-minded towards that. I know that a lot of the comments were like, well, actually, there's one comment. One comment said, it'd be cool if you weren't just signing all of the best young players in the world. And sort of, I get it. I do get it. That's sort of the point, though, of the save. I feel that way also, that I don't want to do that in most saves because it feels like shortcutting, and it feels like it's not the true essence of Football Manager on the story that you're going on. You want to kind of do things differently. People want to do things differently. I think for a save like this is almost the perfect excuse to be able to do that. So I like to explain these things. I feel like you guys are really good at trying to catch my drift and understanding where I'm coming from. And I love to hear your points of view as well, especially when it is a discussion like that. So I do like to explain these things, but I'm going to spend a bit of money in this one, I think. Christian Mosquera, £74 million for him. But it makes up now a really fun defence of Tobias Mosquera, Robert Renan, who's a bit of our leader. He's our captain. I was going to say he's a bit older, but he's also 22. So he's also going to improve in this role. Natural on the left-hand side too, with Sergio Gomez, who was brought in. Was it in the January? I think it was the January of last season, wasn't it, that he came in and played 10 games at the end of last season. Only 16 million. He's actually relatively young still at 25 too. So he's certainly not past it, but I am already thinking about who can I come in and bring in to be an even younger left back for the future. Maybe more of a natural left back, because I think Gomez, always to me at least, isn't a natural left back. He's sort of a midfielder that's been moved to left back, which can work. And I mean, that's something that I do very often as well, but converting my own players. But maybe in the future we'll look to improve on him. Then our midfield, which is going to be Angelo Stiller and Sverre Naipan. Now, there's actually a chance for some rotation here because I've also brought in Desiree Doué, who is a fantastic player in real life. I think he's one of my favourite players at the moment to watch. He is so exciting to watch, isn't he? And he plays on the wing and he's more of an attacking player. However, I'm not sure I want him to be a winger based on his profile on FM24 at least. And we don't play with a number 10 or a central midfielder. So I am wondering if I need to kind of, in the same conversation we had about Naipan actually in the last video, whether I move him deeper and try and train him here and then maybe use him a bit of both. He's very similar to Naipan in that regard, actually. At the moment, I've got him training as a defensive midfielder, but he's still very much one for the future. I don't think he's as good in-game as he is in real life, or at least he doesn't have the same potential. But hopefully he does. I mean, looking at the potential here, hopefully he will still improve quite a lot. He's cost us 46 million, but again, it's sort of along the same lines of I just want to make sure I've got as many of the best young talents from around the world in our squads, and then that will become new gens eventually down the line. But for now, I want to build, because we're building 3 teams. Like, it's not like I'm stacking up one team with all of them, because we need to spread it across 3 different teams now, and maybe even 4 eventually to keep it challenging. We'll have more teams, and then the better the teams come, maybe the less management it takes, so you can actually expand into doing more clubs in the network. And where this goes is kind of amendable and malleable about how you want to build your world of Football Manager, and that is just so much about how I play Football Manager anyway. So Desiree Doué comes in. I've also brought in, I'll show you all of the transfers in a list before, but just so you can kind of get an idea of the squad. You can also see players that are out on loan from here already, as I just put Nelson Viper back on the bench there. We have got we've got Rooney Bargi continuing from the right-hand side, and then a new player, brilliantly named, Yuri Penis, who is going to be our left winger for this year. Now, you'll notice he's actually on loan from Wolverhampton. So Wolves have bought him and then immediately loaned him over to Wolfsburg. They signed him for 45 million, and this was really about allocation of funds, to be completely honest with you. Wolves had the money to spend, and then actually I could loan him across. So it's iffy at best if you wait for a watching, but we've signed him here and loaned it. It's very Chelsea, actually, isn't it? Signing a player for one team, or even if you think of like Savinho at City at the moment, playing for Girona, and then he had this first option, then he's gone to City, and I think they signed him for Girona and then immediately sent him or something like that, wasn't it? So it does happen in real life, but we've kind of done the same here. And Yuri Penis, it's still ridiculous to see. There is a lot of clips of me celebrating a penis goal by sort of shouting it out loud. So yeah, again, that's a reason to come and watch on the Twitch, isn't it? He's going to be one of our wingers, but actually we've got a lot of competition on this wing too. Matisse Town might play as the left winger, and then Viper comes in. He scored a lot of goals for us last year. Did Nelson Viper, 28 looking 34. So there's no reason why this might not be our setup. And then there's a big upgrade in the attack. Benjamin Šeško has come in, the Slovenian brilliant wonder kid. Now, we all know about how good he is in Football Manager. Similar to the Doué signing, similar to the Mosquera signing, I've signed him for big money, £43 million. That will increase. If I go to the clauses, I've tried to be sensible enough with these things, but that one will increase to a hefty amount once I go down. You can see all of the clauses here. I think it's realistic to do things with clauses, to be honest. There's not actually one on here, but I assume there is future installments on that. I'm pretty sure it wasn't just £43 million up front, but if it was, then that's a brilliant signing. It doesn't say that it's going to go up more. Maybe it was, but I think it is. I think it will go up. In fact, in the future, if we look on here, you'll notice that this number may change. Maybe it's appearances or something like that, but I didn't see him on there. That would be where it is, right? On the outs here. Yeah, it's not there. Perhaps I've actually done a transfer masterclass there. Either way, he's going to be one of our strikers. We've got Viper, we've got Sesko, and we've got Tal. And then on the bench, I've also brought in a few loan players to bolster the squads. This is something I've actually come across for the first time this year. Zealand will be very happy because I've done a few loans. After I started moving players between the three teams, I actually ended up having smaller squads, and then to fill those squads I've loaned in some players, and I've tried to stick to the same sort of theme of bringing in younger players that are quite exciting to come in. So for example, Gift Orban has come in to be a backup attacker. He can play on the wings, can play up front for us, and he's on a loan from Monaco. We've also brought in Badruddin Bouanani on loan from Nice. Similar story, he's only 21. And then there's also Penis in there, which I just talked to you about before. There's also a few interesting backups here. There's also a few fun backups here, like Richard Rios and Julio Cesar Soler, Murillo, the Forest centre-back who's had a fantastic season, IRL, and then a young goalkeeper as well in Leandro Bray. You'll notice as well at the bottom down here that there are some players out on loan. Yassine Ozcan was one of our backup centre-backs last year. This year, he's on loan at Wolves. And when we go and look at the Wolves team in a minute, you'll just see how much transfer business I've actually gone and done. I've ripped out everything at Wolves and replaced them with my own players because I have so much more of an attachment to players once I've signed them. I don't know if you guys do this in your saves as well, but if you have players that you inherit from an old manager, if you've moved clubs or something, I sort of immediately don't want to use them. I want to bring in my own players and build my own team. And sometimes to the point where I'm selling really good players just to bring in maybe inferior players just because they're my signings. Anyway, that's kind of what I've done at Wolves, but I actually do think I have improved the club quite a lot, the squad quite a lot. Ozcan is one of those. I've also got Franco Mastantuono on loan at Wolfsberger for this year. If you remember, he was on loan at Wolfsburg last year for us, and then we signed him permanently for 4.9 million. Now he's going to spend the season at Wolfsberger, where we have kicked off the season because it's the 2nd of September. He's actually played 4, scored 1, got 2 assists already, and playing very well for them. Hoping we can develop him, another one of my favourite players of FM24, another player that is so exciting in real life, isn't he? Did you see the free kick that he scored recently, which was just, you shouldn't be scoring free kicks like that at the age of 17. It's just outrageous for River Plate. But anyway, he's now in our network, which is quite cool. Similarly, Christian Gruber, the Austrian striker that is just going to be so good, by the way. 6'5", he's 17, and we could loan him to spineless Wolfsberger because he's Austrian. They can loan Austrian players before they turn 18, and so he's gone there, which is just a happy coincidence. But he's now there when he's 17 and he can play for them. He's played the first 4 games and not scored a goal yet, but still, I'm expecting big things from Christian Gruber, one of our first new gens really in the save. And then Nicolo Tresoldi becomes the first player to have been at all 3 teams in our network. Now, that's probably because we've only just added the 3rd team, but Tresoldi started the save at Wolfsburg. He then spent 2 seasons on loan at Wolfsberger, scoring a lot of goals. And then instead of bringing him, well, he did come back to Wolfsburg, but straight away now I've loaned him to our newest acquisition of the network. He's gone to Wolves in the Premier League. So he will have been at all 3 teams, although he didn't play a game, did he, when he was at Wolfsburg? I don't think he played. No, he did. Well, he's played 1 friendly. So technically you could say he's played for all 3 at this stage. He's actually made his Italy debut as well, which is quite cool. He has actually really developed. It'd be nice if he could get a few green attributes, push these 15s to 16s, and then you've got a serious footballer there, haven't you? That sort of sums up the Wolfsburg squad. And do you see what I mean by, you can kind of see by some of the absentees here and some of the loaned out players what I've done with the other teams, which is why I wanted to start with these. I will quickly run you down the transfer business here as a whole, and it's a bit wild. It's actually not. I mean, if you look at it, we've spent £61 million net, but we have signed players to the tune of £201 million and sold players. There's some big sales in here actually for £140 million. Those sales then, Paul Wanner has gone to Bayer Leverkusen for 47 million. Now, this isn't one that I wanted. I don't love the idea of selling players that can improve and become players that we've developed, actually. I don't love the idea of selling them, but it is part of our club vision, isn't it? One of our values was to sell players for profits. So, Paul Wanner coming in for, I think it was 500k, going on loan to Wolfsberger. It's almost the perfect example of why this system is going to be so great for us, because he probably wouldn't have got game time at Wolfsburg. We sent him to Wolfsberger and he played 32 games. Look at that for a record as well. 19 assists, 12 goals. And then because of that, he gets his big move to Bayer Leverkusen where they're happy to spend £47 million on him. Now, I'd love to maybe bring him back one day. Maybe when his value comes back down and he can come and rejoin the network at some stage. But perhaps that's not the case. Also, it's another happy coincidence that he's Austrian and we could send him to Wolfsberger, which is quite a nice little touch, actually. But we've now made, I mean, £46.5 million on him if you just look at his transfer fees rather than wages, which is quite a nice amount of money. And then if we work down this list, this is what I meant when I said that UEFA may well be looking into us and we're racking up some charges. I don't know if I mentioned it before, but on Twitch, whenever we do something like this, the chat keeps a tally of how many crimes we commit. And I think we're on about something like 20 odd charges at this stage. We're trying to catch up with Manchester City is what we're doing. But there is a lot of transfers between clubs where maybe the values of the players aren't quite reflected in the transfer fees. But we have the opportunity to do that. Sometimes I am trying to be a bit fair. Sometimes I'm really not. Depends on how much money the network as a whole has. And sometimes it's about shifting funds. Maybe Wolves have been given a bigger transfer budget because they're in the Premier League. But I have a big target that I want to sign for Wolfsburg. I might sign a player from Wolfsburg with Wolves for a big transfer fee. And then suddenly all of those funds are there and we can go and use it. And overall the whole network grows. It's certainly not legal, is it? But this isn't real, so it kind of works. After Paul Wanner went, look, we have Aslani. He was signed as a bargain for us, by the way. 11 million after his initial loan. He was actually super integral for us in that second season, just playing one of our defensive midfield spots. It prompted Brighton to pay 44 million for him. And again, it was not a player I wanted to lose, but for that type of money, it just made sense to allow it. Part of our vision being that profit. It gave us the money to go and strengthen elsewhere. So he went to Brighton. We also sold 3 players here to Wolves. Now, Wolves, having sold basically the entire squad, need players. I've decided to move Asta Vranks there, where he's going to go and be a starter for Wolves. I really like him. He's going to be one of the defensive midfielders in this Wolves squad for this season. Remember, they are lower half of the Premier League expected for this year. So players like Vranks can easily go and slot in and be a starter there. I've moved about 20 million once it's all done, which is probably quite cheap for him, but we move, don't we? Similarly, Junior Krupi is going to go and be a starter for Wolverhampton Wanderers. Now, he's actually one, like Tresoldi, who will have actually played for all 3 clubs in the network. He started at Wolfsburg, actually played a game. Then he went to Wolfsberger and had a whole season. And then he had a whole season at Wolfsburg. So he's probably moved the most between them. He's definitely played for all of them, hasn't he? Now he's at Wolves and he's played the first 3 games of the season there. And if you remember, we were retraining him to be this left-sided forward. And he is listed as a wonder kid. So Hopefully he improves too in this Wolves team. The other one is Eduardo Quaresma for £8.5 million. I kind of did this because, one, we needed a centre-back at Wolves, and two, he's Portuguese, and it kind of still made a bit of sense for him to be at Wolves because of the Portuguese links there. So he's come in and he's going to be a starter for them there. And then some other sales, just to go through these. I made Daniel Dagger's loan to Wolfsberger permanent for £5 million. Nathan Zezi has gone for £4 million. Again, that was after a loan. He's now gone there permanently. And then Fabian Krivak, actually, I think the same thing. His loan has been made permanent to go in and be a starter there. This was very cheap. £2 million is not as much as he's worth a bit more than that. But we own both clubs, so it sort of works, doesn't it? Few players left on a free, and then lots of loans, as you see here. Look, Gruber, Ozcan, Mikic has gone on loan again. Jasic has gone on loan again to Wolfsberger. Tresoldi to Wolves, as I showed you before, and then Rodrigo Mora on loan, and Franco Mastantuono on loan too. That's all of the business, which does definitely bleed into some of the business for Wolves and for Wolfsburg. I'll go to Wolfsberger first. Spineless Wolfsberger, I should say, as I've been corrected. And this is the situation here. In fact, one little bit of news here. We've just received a bid of £10 million from Bournemouth for Livano Comenencia, who is our captain. I really don't want to sell him, but if we get really big bids for him, we might have to eventually. But for now, I'm trying to resist these bids, and I've rejected this one here, but something to keep an eye on. If I show you the business here, in fact, I'll show you the squad here. This is how we are looking. We have a few new gen players. Now, a lot of you asked about the youth intakes. We do have good youth facilities. I will probably tell you about youth players if I think they're really hot prospects, or if I think they're actually going to go straight into the team, or if they're going to impact the teams here. One of those players is, we got this man through, Zlatko Tomoc, who is an Austrian goalkeeper, who I've decided is good enough to be the goalkeeper at Wolfsberger here for this year. He is 6'2". He's Austrian. He's got a bit of potential. He's actually got a decent value as well, which is always a good sign to show that they're actually probably quite good. He's going to be our goalkeeper straight in at 16 years old. I wonder how much we can develop him by just giving him loads of game time from a really early age. I wonder if we can turn him into an Austrian international, but he was one of our intake players. There's a few other intake players on here. Klaus Kota Dye was one of them here. We've also got Adalbert Sitzpinkler. If you're wondering about the names, a lot of them are new gen renames for either Patreon members, or it's a channel points redemption on the Twitch stream. So some of them aren't natural names in the game, but one thing I always say is try to keep the names within the scope of the save so they become fairly realistic. So, for example, Zlatko Tomoc, his real name is not Zlatko Tomoc, it's Zlatko Eskic. But the wonderful editor of these videos decided to redeem his new gen rename and went for Zlatko Tomoc. So he's going to be the man between the sticks. And then we're going to have Mikic, Debast, Zezi and Vala, who were all here last year, I believe. I think this is the second season for Mikic on loan, right? Yeah, second season for Mikic. And then Comenencia and Dagger, who were both here last year, but Dagger, I should say, is now permanent. Mastantuono, we've talked about on the right-hand side. Yasser Espria on the left-hand side, although that will probably rotate. We've got great players to rotate, actually, on these wings. The likes of João Rego is here now. We signed him last year for £14 million, if you remember. We've also got, I've signed this summer, Francis Onyeka, who's a decent prospect from Bayer Leverkusen. We've got a lot of really cool attacking players. And then the strike force, I love this. We've got Christian Gruber, our new gen striker, and JP Mateta, of course. He is a wonderful, weird little storyline that we've got going on in this save. And if you have a look at this, he scored 6 goals in his first 4 games for this season. He's just a goal scorer, isn't he? In fact, on the bench, there are a lot of players that will usually be playing. João Rego, I'd expect to be starting games. Players like Krivak probably comes in as a starter on here, but a lot of them are on international duty at the moment. But you can see the whole squad there and sort of see the moves that we've made. One thing to say as well, Paris Brunner was bought by PSG for £8 million. So I sold him because it was good profit, and they actually let us loan him back for the season too. So it was sort of made sense to do that. Is an interesting one for PSG to pick him up. It probably shows that he does have good potential, but I don't think he didn't really do it for us. Well, I mean, it's okay. He got 10 goals and 32, but I felt like he was being outscored by Mateta, and I didn't know if there was going to be a spot for him because we've brought in Gruber now for this year, who I want to give game time to, and I want him to develop. So it kind of made sense to sell him, and then they said you can have him back for free on loan. So I've said yes to doing that. This is the rundown of the transfer business. It's £17 million spent for spineless Wolfsberger, £26 million out. The biggest one is actually with Zlatko Tomic coming through the youth intake. I've sent Dennis Simon over to Wolves to be their first choice goalkeeper, which makes a lot of sense anyway, but also with the new gen player coming through, it kind of made even more sense. So Dennis Simon is going to be Wolves' goalkeeper. I kind of think we've shown a lot of what the Wolves squad is going to be already, I think, haven't we? Even though we've not gone through their transfer business yet, but it kind of makes sense to do so. So Simon in, and then we've also sold Paris Brunner that I showed you. About Mene went, Polster went, a few free transfers here, and then we've loaned out. I signed Stefanos Zimas because he's, I think, got a move to, was it Brighton he's ended up moving to or is going to move to? But he was linked with a few teams whilst I was playing the save, and I decided to pick him up. He's not very good in FM, in all honesty, but I've signed him and loaned him out as well. Then the signings in here, I think I've gone through most of them, but you can see how much they all cost. Most of them were from one of our sister clubs. So 4 from Wolfsburg, 5 from Wolfsburg, 6 from Wolfsburg, 5 of them on loan. No, there's more. There's 8 players from Wolfsburg. 3 of them signed permanently, and then 5 of them on loan. And then also 1 from Wolves, which was a loan that I don't think we're even going to play him, but he was available as just an extra player in there. Got a bit of potential, Dejan Sahovic, so we might try and use him, but we will see. That's the Wolfsberger business. Take a breath. Let's go now and have a look at this massive rebuild that I've done over at Wolves for our new manager there, Kolo Touré. And this is the screen that I think I need to start on because it shows just the complete magnitude of what I've managed to achieve in this transfer window. I don't recommend doing this much business all in one go, but it was a newly promoted team that was a bit of a mess, honestly. There were some players that had been brought in on huge wages that just were not good enough to be on those wages. There's still a few. I'll show you here. As an example of it, I've loaned out this man here, Isaiah Jones, and he's on £87,000 here at Wolves. Now, we've had to loan him for, how much are they paying for him? They're paying £8,000 per week, as well as some monthly fees in there. And they've got the option to sign him for £24 million. He is no way worth £24 million. I feel like this is a great thing to show you, to explain why I've been so busy. And I didn't just maybe inherit the team and see how we did. I've decided to kind of rip it out completely and try to start again. £87,000 a week for this. The worst part about it is that they signed him for £38.5 million as a championship team after he had some okay seasons at Middlesbrough. He scored 9, and then at the start of the second season, Wolves decided to pay £38.5 million for him. He doesn't get anywhere near the team either, so he's just one as well. There's loads more. Like, in fact, if I go back to the business that they did, this is before I got here. They spent £133 million. Rav Vandenberg for £20 million. Look, again, from Middlesbrough. I don't know what Middlesbrough held over Wolves and why they managed to sell these players to them. They've taken over 60. They've taken about £60 million there. And look, Rav Vandenberg on £105,000 per week. I don't know who was in charge, but it wasn't great. They even loaned in Neil Maupay, which is just wild. They also signed Marius Wolf for £10 million, and it just goes on. They actually got Liam Delap for £30 million. But that one seems like an actual good bit of business if you compare it to the others. Either way, this is what prompted me into doing a lot of different business. There's actually some things on here too that I didn't do. Sean Longstaff was a deal that was already done, that was scheduled to come in, so I didn't sign him, but he came in. Jamal Lewis the same. Danny Ings exactly the same. Sasha Lukic the same. So they'd already spent the best part of £10 million before I arrived, just for them to come in when I got here. Wan-Bissaka is another one of those as well before I got to doing any of my business. But I'll start with the outs and go really quickly through which players I've sold and for how much money, because we don't need to worry about these players because we're not ever going to use them. But this is kind of the squad that was here. I've sold Fabio Silva for £53 million to Salzburg. I and ahed about this one a little bit because it's a lot of money. So I was definitely going to sell him for that money. But technically we have strengthened one of Spineless Wolfsberger's big rivals for the title there. But then I considered it and I was like, is he that good? And does it mean that they spent a lot of their money on a player that I don't think is too good? And we kind of agreed that that was the best thing here, that otherwise they might go and spend 50 million on an actual good striker. And we might as well take the money from them for a player that I think we've already got better strikers than Fabio Silva. So 53 million for him. 32 million for Yerson Mosquera, the centre-back, who would probably have been in our team, and I think he's decent, but it's good money to go and reinvest in younger players and players that, again, are my own, that I actually want to play and use. Harvey Barnes, with an equaliser, has gone to Saudi Al Hilal for £23.5 million. Bastian Miepiu has gone to Bayer Leverkusen. I'd have loved to have kept him. Young, talented player that would he'd be the type of signing that I would go and make. He fits the bill in that regard, doesn't he? But it was good money, £27 million for him. I decided to say yes and let him go because it allowed us to do other things. Gonçalo Guedes has gone to Roma, a little bit less than his value, but he was on massive wages for us. He's now on 88k. I think he was on more than that for us. So I've allowed him to go. He's 29. I think it makes sense. Dan Neil, don't really even know who Dan Neil is. He went for north of £10 million. Sasha Lukic, signed him this summer, sold him for £10 million immediately. Marius Wolf, signed last year. We sold him for 7.5. Sasha Lukic, by the way, we signed him permanently. I think he was on loan for the championship season. Signed him for £3.5 million, sold him for £10.5 million. A lovely bit of business that, isn't it? Then a few more players here, all for like £3, £4, £5 million, all the way down the list here. And then it gets onto, at the end, the loans that I talked about before, which was Yuri Penis to Spineless Wolfsburg and Sahovic to Spineless Wolfsberger. Into the incomings then, I'll just show you, I'll just sort it by the amount of money that we've spent so you can see the big signings. Obviously, with this amount of money going out, we had quite a lot of money to go and spend. We're in the Premier League. You do get decent money here. So I think it was about 100 million was our amount to go and spend in the end. And obviously, I've done a lot of these in future installments and things like that to be able to afford this. But I've spent big on Carlos Baleba, just because he's another player that I just love in real life. And I love the idea of getting to use him in the game here and slotting him into this newly promoted Wolves team. It's quite cool that he was interested in joining. Perhaps he wasn't a starter at Brighton, although actually did play a lot of games here. I actually think what's happened here is that they were happy to let him go for that money because they'd signed a new midfielder. And that new midfielder to go into their team is probably Christian Aslani, who we sold them. So we kind of facilitated this transfer happening in a weird sort of way. Again, UEFA, if you're watching, I'm not manipulating the markets. It's just coincidence. I promise you. Anyway, he is fantastic and only 22, and he's going to come in and be one of our defensive midfielders, as is Archie Gray from Tottenham Hotspur, £51 million. Simeone Profundi, amazing FM24 wonder kid, comes in to play on the right wing. Yuri Penis we signed and then loaned out, of course, to Wolfsburg. Silla came in, great centre-back. He was our number one choice to come in and be our centre-back. He's also a brilliant leader, 19 leadership too, for a 23-year-old. Build your defence around him for many, many years is sort of my thinking there. Left-sided as well, so he plays naturally on that side. We signed Bino Gittins because he was English, and I wanted to try and make sure that we had some type of English core to this team. So Archie Gray, Bino Gittins, as well as signing some young players that can become homegrown at club and homegrown in nation. Players like Lenny Yoro, who's quite young, £25 million, was not getting his game at Manchester United at all, look. And we know that he's got huge potential. So bring him in, see if we can nurture him into the player that we know that he can become. He can be such a good centre-back on FM24 and in real life, of course. Dennis Seaman, we talked about. Franks, Krupi, Quaresma, we talked about. Festi Ebasele as the backup right back, but he's technically homegrown in nation as well, having been at Derby and Watford before that, look, etc. So he is homegrown in nation. He's going to be a backup. Froylan Diaz, backup goalkeeper. And then Alvaro Rodriguez is one of ours, 22-year-old Uruguayan. I've signed him in other saves and he's just been brilliant. He's going to be a backup striker for us. And then a few more. I've loaned John Duran. I've loaned Alvaro Fernandez with the idea of signing him permanently, by the way. Only £4.7 million. I need to go and change his name. You may well know him as Alvaro Carreras, as I've just edited his nickname in there so that we know him by his proper name. Oh, by the way, that reminds me actually, Samu, of who we had on loan last season, has gone back to Porto. At the end of this season, they didn't want to loan him to me for a second season, so we don't have Samu anymore. But you wouldn't have seen that when we were looking at Wolfsburg, would you? But we signed Sesko instead, so we'll probably be okay there, won't we? Finally, I beefed out the squad with a few loans. Brian Gruder from Brighton on loan, and then Ozcan and Trasoli that you've seen before. That means the squad looks something like this going into this season. I actually think it's a really good squad with still a little bit of business that I'm sad that we didn't get to do because Rav Vandenberg, I'd like to have sold on. Pedro Lima, I'm not sure he's going to play. Ait Nori will probably start, but he's just injured at the moment. Trasoli will probably be on the bench, etc., etc. But something like this, look, as the squad. Dennis Simon in goal. We've got Joachim Mailer as a right back. Ait Nori as the left back. Silla and Quaresma as our centre backs. Baleba and Vranks as our defensive mids. Krupi on the left, Fundy on the right. And then it won't be Alvaro. It'll be Trasoli with Delap probably starting up front. But we also have options to go and rotate those. Some really good loan players. John Duran on loan, look. Archie Gray could come in and be a starter for lots of games. I kind of want to play him. But with all of these improvements, Wolves were predicted to finish, I think it was 19th when we first came up. They're now predicted to finish 12th, which to me says we can aim for top 8, top 7. top 6 even. I actually think we've got a team that should actually improve over the course of the season too. Krupi, Tresoldi, Pafundi. If you imagine what they can become, we've got Sergio Gomez that I didn't tell you about, by the way. He can definitely come in and play games at defensive midfield. I actually think we've got a team there that probably should be aiming slightly higher than 12th. And I just think as an overall body of work for this transfer window, I know that I've talked about it for ages, but that's sort of the point of the save, isn't it? I just think we've done an amazing job to build 3 really exciting young teams full of talent that should improve, full of assets that can be sold for massive amounts of money in the future, full of fun, basically. And that's where I'm going to go and hopefully have that fun now by playing the games. I'll be doing it exactly the same, by the way. I will be playing 1 game per game week. So if all 3 teams are playing on the same day, I will select one of them to play, and then I will insta result the other 2, and then rotate between the clubs of which teams we're actually managing in game, so that the game moves at the same pace. And you can actually manage being the manager of all 3 teams all at once here. Let's go and play some games. I'll be back at some point during the season with an update to tell you how things are going. Okay, so I'm back with an update after the January window has just closed. Let's start with spineless Wolfsburg. In the Bundesliga then, this team is really good. We currently sit in 3rd. So after 2 seasons finishing 2nd to Bayern Munich, this year we're actually just behind our energy drink derby rivals, RB Leipzig, at this stage. However, there's 14 games to go, so I'm hopeful that we can finish at least 2nd again. Bayern Munich have been outrageous. It's actually their best season so far. They have not lost a game so far. They've won 18 of their 20, only drawn twice. One of them was to us. We drew with them at Bayern Munich's ground at the Allianz, 1-1. But I'm not too worried about this. I think as long as we finish in the top 4 in the league, I'm quite happy. If we can make some progress in the Champions League, I'm also pretty happy and I think it's going to take a lot of improvement to be able to beat Bayern Munich to the title. But we're on the slow burn. We're going to get there, I think. And with Wolfsburg, I think we've got a really, really good squad of players now. I wonder if we've maybe slightly weakened the entire squad by shipping a few players to Wolves and sending a few to Wolfsberger. But I think the first 11 is probably as strong as it's ever been. Maybe just lacking one more striker, and then that would allow me to use, I don't know, maybe it's not true. Maybe this is as strong as it's been. It's probably something like this, if I was to give you the first 11, and then perhaps we'll have a look at one game, choose a game to have a look at the highlights for each club at this stage. So 3rd in the league with spineless Wolfsburg. There's of course also been a transfer window, so I need to update you on a couple of new incoming players. In fact, I think it's just one new incoming player here at Wolfsburg, and that is Jural Hato. I'm going to go with, from Ajax. Another one that is right towards the very top of the players that I want to sign in not just this save, but any save. He is amazing in my eyes. He's brilliant in real life. I'd love it if my team, Liverpool, would go and sign Jural Hato, maybe use him as a left back / left-sided defender cover somewhere along the lines. I could see him making that big move to a team like Liverpool or Arsenal, something like that, in this summer for sure. And yeah, signing him in this save, it felt like the best way to go and spend quite a lot of money. Now, he was really expensive. This goes back to the conversation we had before. £91 million. But I think it's justified when you consider that he's 20, he's a wonder kid, he's already, I would say, our best defender. He could probably be he's better than Robert Renan to start at left-sided centre-back, but he's also our best left-back as well. And I wonder if maybe the plan for him is to play him left-back for this year, which is where I've been using him in the first 5 games that he's played, and then maybe transition him into the centre of defence and sign a new left-back from there. He comes in now though, Jural Hato, because I've sold, well, you probably guessed it, I've sold Sergio Gomez that I kind of talked about doing. I think I still want to sign another centre-back, but in January, look, we have done a little bit of business. There's a few sales going on in this January window. The first one, for £25 million, Sergio Gomez has gone back to Dortmund, which I think is quite a nice little story actually, but it's good money for a player that we signed for £16 million. It's that profit that we talked about. He's also not one of the younger players, so he's now 26, to go and get more money than we paid for him after, what, a season and a half? Well, it's actually not even that. It's like, it's 2 half seasons making up 1 full season with us to make, what, about £9 million profit. I'm okay with that. He's now gone to Dortmund, and I've brought in Jural Hato using some of that money, but also the money that we brought in for Thiago Santos. Now, he was, I should say, our backup right back after we brought in Vinicius Tobias, but £21 million. Look, £8.5 million we paid for him. He played 40 games for us in the league in total, and he's gone for 21 million. And he's gone for £21 million to the Premier League. So it's, again, good profit for a player that wasn't even starting for us. So he's come out, and then that 50 million all in once the extras have been paid on Thiago Santos has paid for about half of a João Hato, and we had a bit of money left over from the summer anyway. I've also loaned out Damir Majic to Frankfurt. He was the other new gen striker that wasn't Gruber. I can't send him to spineless Wolfsberger yet because he's not 18, but I can send him on a domestic loan to another German team, and he's gone to Frankfurt where they've told me he's going to play, but he hasn't played any games yet. But in the Bundesliga shows that he's got enough quality to go into being a Bundesliga striker. So he's going to go there for half a season, and then I'm really hoping that we can get him to go to spineless Wolfsberger for next season. I'm not actually sure if he's going to be able to go for next season because I think he needs to turn 18 and he doesn't turn 18 until after the window closes. So it might be January of next season that he ends up going there, but we will see with him. It's good for him to go out on loan, I think, and get some game time. I also signed this Thomas Obregon, which I didn't tell you about before, but he's a really handy looking new gen right back who I've signed for about £5 million. And then I loaned him back to Talares, who we signed him from. He's now back at the club. He's in our under 19s, but I am wondering if I need to find him a loan somewhere, maybe to spineless Wolfsberger or something. But I did want to mention him because I think he's got quite a lot of potential. But that's sort of the transfer story for Wolfsburg. Let's pick a game to show you these lads in action. As I show you the results on here, there's been some great games. Freiburg here, a 6-0 win, a hat-trick. It's 4 goals. Do you know what? Let's go with this game here. A 6-0 win against Freiburg. I'll show you our players scoring goals. I'll show you Matisse Tal scoring goals. His 19 million that we spent on him is a massive bargain for this save. There's Santos setting up that first goal, actually. I don't know if Viper got a touch, but either way, it's ended up in the back of the net. Santos obviously sold since then. There's Bargi, deflected shot, Tallinn at the back post. It's been his best ever goal scoring season from Matisse Tal this year. I mean, 4 goals in this game helps with that, doesn't it? Angelo Stiller, by the way, love him to absolute bits. Look at this goal that he scores here. It's almost outside of the foot as well. He gets it, look at that, bends it into that far corner, past the goalkeeper. Perfect number 6 in the role that we want them to play for our number 6s, which is to get forward and actually run around a lot. Matisse Tal smashing that one in. Look, that was, I think, 5-0 and then 6-0 right at the end from his and Stiller, Richard Rios, Tal. Yeah, Tal with a big header, look, over the keeper. 6-0 win. Oh, no, there's actually another one. There is another goal. That was 5. 6 is hit. Sesko gets the 6. There it is, look. That was 6-0, and it just shows where this team is. It's not winning the league yet because Bayern Munich are a joke. It's also probably not going to win the Champions League. However, we are going through from the Champions League group stage or league phase, I should say, in the top 8, meaning we're going to go straight into the round of 16, missing out that playoff round. So Wolfsburg in the last 16 of the Champions League, Wolfsberger, better than last year, have qualified through the playoffs. They finished 13th in their group. We'll come on to their season in a second, but I think it's worth mentioning whilst we're on the screen here. They got themselves a record of 4 wins in 8, 1 draw and 3 losses. They haven't played each other yet, which I'm waiting for that moment where our spineless teams will play against one another. That can be quite a fun time, can't it? Oh, and by the way, something that somebody mentioned about changing the stadium names. It's now called the Spineless Volkswagen Arena, which I actually just thought was quite funny because obviously Volkswagen were the previous sponsors, but I kind of like the idea of calling it the Spineless Volkswagen. So I have done stadium names. If it wasn't visible on the last video, it's because sometimes going into different save files and in and out, and when you close the game and open it again, sometimes it reverts back to just being called Wolfsburg and just being called Wolfsberger on here. But it's to do with which teams are licensed and things, and sometimes it can be a bit iffy with that. So I have gone and customized it all, but sometimes it does revert back. So if you do see that, that's sort of the reason why. But that's Wolfsburg. Let's jump across to, let's do Wolfsberger, and then we'll go to Wolves at the end as the newest team in the network. Wolfsberger are once again going to go and win the league for a 3rd successive season, it seems. I mean, we're 4 points clear of Salzburg, who are, I mean, they're there or thereabouts, and they've actually gone unbeaten so far. It just goes to show those draws can just really hamper you, can't they? 8 draws for them. They've not lost a game, but we've only lost 2. We did lose to them, and we also lost we lost 5-1 to Austria Klagenfurt. I actually saw a comment somebody said in the first video about how it seems like the Swiss teams are doing really well rather than the Austrian teams in this league. And it's really true. If you have a look at the table here, you've got Salzburg. Now, obviously, they've got all of the financial backing. That's the Austrian team that does the best. But then we've got the two Zurich teams here, obviously of Switzerland, and then Lausanne-Sport are Austrian, Sturm Graz are Austrian, but I would have expected the Austrian teams to do significantly better than the Swiss teams just because of their standing in football. However, Swiss teams are doing really well here. It's actually interesting that Basel are all the way down in 12th here. I thought they were going to be a lot better than they were. I've also noticed that when we drop points in this league, and we've dropped points in 5 games here, it's to teams that you wouldn't necessarily expect us to drop points to. So we drew to St. Gallen, who are only in 11th. We drew to Austria Vienna, who are down in 10th. And we drew to Sturm Graz, who are in 6th. We also lost 5-1 to Austria Klagenfurt, which, by the way, is just a fantastic name. And they're the team that Andy Irving was at. And if you know anything about my backstory about how much I love Andy Irving, just a brilliant. They've got David Wagner as their manager there. Anyway, we're on track to win the league here. If I show you some of the results on this screen here, you can see that we are completely dominant. We won 9-0 here against SV Reed. We won 6-0 here recently against Grasshopper. I'm going to show you this game here, I think. A 2-1 win in the Champions League against Borussia Dortmund. Dortmund, we managed to finish above in the past 2 seasons with Wolfsburg, so maybe they're not quite the team that we think they are. So maybe they're more like real life Dortmund from this year than the Dortmund that we've known from the past. But did Sergio Gomez play this game? He was on the bench. He came on, look. And Ridal Baku as well, another one of our former players. He's obviously moved on from, we sold him to Liverpool and he's come back to the Bundesliga with Dortmund here. Anyway, this was our team. We've not signed anybody in January, but we have sold a couple of big players for pretty big money with Wolfsberger, giving us hopefully a bit of a budget for the summer to go and sign some new players too. But we'll get into those in a second. Let me just show you the goals in this game, because Christian Gruber scoring the opener here, I think it's just really cool to see. It's a big header. Oh, it's a big header at the back post and he pops it in the rebound in a very, very cold Austrian evening here. And then Querfeld scoring the second to make it 2-0 in the first half. And then Dortmund, again, scrappy. All of the goals at this end and all of them pretty scrappy, look. It was Rodriguez that smashed that one home, but a 2-1 win for us here to see us through into those playoffs. I don't know, it hasn't been drawn yet who we're going to play in those Champions League knockout games, but of course at the end of the season I will update you on how we managed to do in that competition. It looks like we're going to go and win the league here, but we did, as I mentioned, sell a couple of players at the end of the January window, and those were Yasser Asprilla towards the start of the window actually. £6 million has gone to Al Tai in Saudi. 6 million doesn't sound like loads, but he wasn't really playing and it's about what we paid for him. So he didn't play loads of games. It's only 6 starts this season, look. 9 off the bench. He did okay, but I've decided to let him go for £6 million. He was also on pretty hefty wages for our league. And I just actually, I basically had a look at him and thought, he's 23 now. I don't know if he's ever going to become a player that's really, really good. And in real life, he's had a really good season with Girona, which prompted me to go and pick him up. He used to be great as a bit of a wonder kid in FM, didn't he? In this save, though, not quite so good, so we've let him go. And then finally, very sad about this one, but Livano Comenencia, our captain, has moved on to Bournemouth for, I kind of mentioned it, there was a lot of interest. I was rejecting bids for him. They came back in the January. It's 13.5 million, which can rise to 16.75 as well. I think it may even go higher than that with things like appearances, etc. So I've decided to let him go because, again, it's massive, massive profits. 96k we paid for him. That loan did him a lot of good, and he's come back and been a regular starter, our captain. But we're going to let him go because I think with Dagger and with Krivak and with Zambrano that we've brought in the midfield, I think we've got enough cover there to be fine in this team. And just looking at it, by the way, JP Mateta, Jean-Philippe Mateta has got 23 goals in 23 games, which is just outrageous. Every time he scores a goal, I do the boom thing. It's really, really ridiculous. Christian Gruber has got 14 and 28 as well as a 17-year-old, which is really cool. Hopefully, well, you'd imagine he will be one of our strikers in one of our teams in our network for the remainder of his career, I'd imagine. I don't think I can't see myself selling him because he's so great and he's very me. 17 to be this good. He should, imagine all of these can become green attributes and then finishing push that up to 16, 15, 16 and this dribbling first. He should be a bit of a world beater. His potential does say he's going to improve loads more as well. So hopefully that is a really high potential. We're going to see a super player. He's got 4 goals in 3 games for the under-21s as well. So Christian Gruber's doing great. Then finally, let's move over to Wolves and show you how they're doing. Now, this is maybe the biggest shock, actually. Wolves, newly promoted Wolverhampton Wanderers, by the way, are 5th in the Premier League. I kind of saw it coming because we were predicted 12th. I think we've brought in some really great players and we've actually strengthened again in January. I think this is about right now. In fact, it may have even changed on here. Yeah, predicted to finish 9th. I don't think it's outside the realms of possibility then. With any other teams above us dropping off a little bit and with us doing well, I think you could be hoping for a 4th, 5th, 6th place finish here. If we could go and sneak in to that top 4 for this year, or if there can become a 5th place Champions League place, that would be glorious, because it would be really fast tracking us so that we'd have 3 teams of all of them in the elite competition in Europe, and then the Premier League money that you get for being in the Premier League, for finishing high in the Premier League, as well as that Champions League money. You'd even maybe be thinking about, do Wolves become the main team, with then Wolfsburg being a slight feeder club, with then Wolfsberger being the 3rd team in the hierarchy, a bit like that. I don't know. It depends really. I suppose if you look at the rankings, it will still be Wolfsburg, probably Wolfsberger still above Wolves, because they've only just been promoted, but that may well change. It's been a really, really good season. 6 losses in there in the 24 games, but 14 wins against the following teams there. Look, it's a 4-0 win against Chelsea. That's maybe the game we should go and have a look at. There's an 8-0 win against Crystal Palace there. Just outrageous. We've lost some games. Look, we lost to Liverpool, to City. We lost 4-3 to Bournemouth. It's a 5-2 loss to Liverpool on there. We lost to City twice, actually. Lost to Everton, lost to Fulham. So we're not perfect. We are dropping points, but we're doing pretty well. And the squad now looks a little bit like this with, can you spot some new players in there? You probably spot one of them. The rest of the team is the same, except for up front, it's a familiar face. It's Samu, everybody. Back into the network after his loan at Wolfsburg. He went back to Porto, and we have spent big money. Now I'm going to explain why we spent this money on him, or how we managed to come to have this much money in a second. But I've spent £74 million to bring Samu back into the spineless network, and I'm hoping that this continues. He's got 3 goals in 4 games, look, and a great average rating. He's going to be one of our strikers. Samu, Tresoldi, and then Krupi and Pafundi. It's a great front 4 that can really almost all interchange with one another, with good options off the bench in Fernandez. We've got Bino Gittins, who's played a lot of games. We've got Brian Gruder, who's not played loads but can come in and do really well. John Duran, who's really rubbish, by the way. Not as good as you would hope him to be based on how good he is in real life, but he's only on loan, so it's not the end of the world. But you may notice there is a couple of absentees from the start of the season, and that is because in January, we sold Liam Delap for huge money. Basically, £72 million, meaning I could then replace him with Samu for £74 million. It's almost like for like, but also we've got the extra money of Sergio Gomez being sold to Al Nassr for £55 million. Not one I wanted to do. He's the right vibe of the type of midfielder I'd like to have in my team, but he really wanted to go for £700,000 per week, and £55 million is a really good amount of money. If you're thinking about being financially sensible and sticking to our club visions and values, you don't say no to £55 million offers, and you definitely don't say no to 70 odd million for Liam Delap. Even if he is homegrown, he actually wasn't great for us. He only got 6 goals, look, in the 17 games. That's 17 starts. So it's not even like I was sad to see him leave because of his performances. It was really good money for a player that I think already, I mean, Samu's got 3 goals in his first 4 games. He's already halfway to matching Delap's tally for the season. So it just makes sense. It sets us up really nicely though. We've got still, before the summer even comes about, we've got 50, 60 odd million pounds to go and spend. I go to Wolfsberger. They've got money to spend as well, £25 million in the pot there. I've done some future stuff here. Look, we're going to sign these guys permanently from Wolfsburg, and I've set it up immediately. So Jasic joins permanently, Mikic is going to join permanently, and Rodrigo Mora is going to join permanently. They were on loan, obviously, before that. And then Wolfsburg, finally, have £30 million that they can go and spend if we want to. So as a network, we are very much in rude health and doing okay in all of the leagues. We should win the league with Wolfsberger. We should finish at least top 4 with Wolfsburg, and we should hopefully finish top 5 with Wolves, and hopefully that means Champions League places too. And hopefully all of those things come to fruition. I'll see you in like May or June. Come on. Okay, wow. Have I got the most ridiculous end to 3 seasons to tell you about right now? One of them in particular is just outrageous. We'll start though with the most straightforward of finishes to this year. It's now the 27th of May, 2026, and our 3rd season has come to an end. We'll start with Wolfsberger, who have once again, with this squad of players, won the Alpenliga. It's another league title. This one was it was run of the mill. We were already, I think it was 4 points clear the last time we checked in. It's now 5 points. It was Salzburg's draws that ultimately led them to fail in their title charge, but we've won the league 3 years in a row, so we are the best team in this league at this stage. It was 26 wins from 34, 4 draws, 4 losses as well. We lost to Salzburg home and away in this league, and it didn't matter. We still finished 5 points clear of them, so it's a good... Fabio Silva actually got top goal scorer in the league. It was a bit of a shootout between him and Mateta, but I talked about how I was okay with Silva going to them because he's not as good as other players they could sign. He actually had an amazing season. 24 goals, second top average rating as well. So fair play. He also got the most player of the matches. So he's had a great season. But it wasn't enough to win them the league, was it? So there is that. In the Champions League, we did get knocked out in the playoff rounds. And that's annoying because we drew Atletico Madrid. It's just frustrating that we got a team that is as good as them in this playoff round. We gave them a really good game. We drew away from home, look, 2-2 after we went 2-1 up in the 88th minute from Onyeka Molina that made it 2-2 in the 90th minute. It was still a really good draw away from home. Felt like we could get the job done if we were good in the second leg, but Atletico were just too good for us. It was a 4-2 win after extra time. So frustrating. Julian Alvarez made it 1-0 to them. We equalised with João Rego. Into extra time it went, and then Núñez scored twice. Mateus Núñez, look. And then they actually went 4-1 up on aggregate before Mora made it 4-2. So we ran out of legs and they just took the game away from us in that extra time period. But still, we got through to the knockouts. It's still progress in the Champions League. It's another league title. It will be another year where we have money to spend. We're up to £36 million to spend and a lot of wage budget too. We can certainly keep growing this spineless Wolfsberger team, I think, and the future looks pretty bright. Now, though, we need to go over to the other two teams, and I'm going to do this in a specific order. First of all, we're going to go to Wolves. Now, this is an amazing achievement from Wolves this year. This is the squad. These are the stats of the players. I will actually show you all of the assist stats on there too, because it's actually exceeded all expectations as a season. And that's because we were supposed to finish 9th. We were aiming for top 5. We've got top 4. It all came down to the final game of the season. We had to at least match Arsenal's result to finish in the top 4 or to get a better result. We ended up both winning our games. We beat Crystal Palace 5-3 in a ridiculous game. Arsenal beat West Ham 4-0. So it was enough for us to finish in the top 4. We probably will have a 5th Champions League place and it probably wouldn't have mattered, but it's nice to know that that's definitely confirmed. Wolves, promoted from the Championship, will be playing in the Champions League next year. We'll have 3 teams, all 3 teams in our network, playing Champions League football, which is going to be a game changer. It gives us 60 million to go and spend, and that on top of how much money we've spent so far is a decent amount of money with a bit of wage budget too, especially when you consider that we can move money between all 3 of our clubs. So I look at it as one big pot of money. It's now, what, 90 odd million pounds in there. Once we add the Wolfsburg money in as well, that's a lot of money to be able to bring in new players into the network and move players around and try and set these teams up as best as possible. Because now we're having 3 teams in the Champions League. Why don't we start aiming to try and win that competition? I don't feel like the squads are that far away. If we're top 4 in the Prem, we're winning the Alpenliga, and I'm going to show you what's happened in the Bundesliga too. I think we should be aiming for Champions League victories. Maybe not next year, but certainly in the next 2-3 seasons, based on where we are right now. Look at some of the stats on these players. 28 goals from Tresoldi, 9 assists. 16 assists from Krupi, 20 goals from the left wing. He's now maybe one of our better players, and he's now natural playing on this left-hand side. So the transition to move him out there is complete, and it's showing what a player he is. He's actually wanted at the moment by Salzburg, who I've noticed have a lot of money and go after a lot of the best players in the world. Perhaps just because they're reeling so much by spineless Wolfsberger just appearing and winning all of the league titles in this save so far. But well done to Wolves, especially well done to Wolves, because as well as finishing in the top 4, this also happened. A 2-1 after extra time victory in the FA Cup final. We are FA Cup winners this year after going a goal down as well. Havertz into Saka, who smashed it past Dennis Simon, but we went up the other end inside the first half, and Joachim Mailer, deflected finish, made it 1-1, and then it went to extra time. And a bit of a super sub here, not a player that's played a lot of football this year, a lot of sub appearances actually. John Duran involved too, into Jamie Bino Gittens, who smashed it past the goalkeeper to win us the FA Cup. Top 4 are now FA Cup winners. We are in very much rude health. heading into our 4th season of the save. And this isn't even the best yet. And that is because if we go across to Spineless Wolfsburg, Anton Salatros's Spineless Wolfsburg, they have done the unthinkable. They have won the Bundesliga. It didn't even look on the cards the last time we were here. I think they were 3rd in the league and Leipzig were above them. Bayern Munich were well above them. I think it was 5 points clear. But an amazing second half of the season, an amazing last 14 games of the season, and Bayern Munich dropping off a cliff has opened up the door, and we've smashed our way through that door and won the league. It all came down, this is outrageous, it all came down to this final day where we were behind Bayern Munich heading into the final day, and they had to play Dortmund away from home. If we won and they didn't win, we were champions, and they drew 0-0 away at Dortmund. Dortmund, heroes of the save, I'm saying it right now, did the business, and we managed to beat Hertha Berlin 3-0. This was our, let's show you the goals in this one. These were our goals, but we were just, I mean, we obviously live streaming this. We were just watching that result coming in from the Bayern Munich game, and it just was 0-0, and it could have, even up to the very last second, a Bayern Munich goal would have taken this away from us. Even when our final whistle went, I was like, what if they've scored afterwards? What if this gets taken away from us? Are we actually champions? We were lifting the trophy, and I was thinking, are we actually going to win this league? But we did. Bayern Munich, it was confirmed. Final whistle went 0-0 in their game. We won this one 3-0. There's Viper scoring the 3rd goal for us there. We've now got 2 of our teams winning their domestic leagues. We've got all 3 of our teams now in the Champions League. I keep saying it, we are in rude health, aren't we? It's a great place to be with money to spend. Here at Wolfsburg, we've only got 33 million to go and spend, but that's sort of okay because I've already done some business, and that is the signing of Florian Wirtz from Bayer Leverkusen for next season. We're going to bring him in. He's another one of those players that in world football, he's just one of the most exciting young players on the planet right now. And the idea to bring him in and add him to our team was too tempting not to go and do. I've actually got some very strange plans, but I'm not going to get into those right now. If you know, you know. If you watch the Twitch stream, you know what I'm talking about. But that will all become clear in the next video. Let me show you the stats of some of these players on here, and then I'll let you know how we did in the Champions League too, which in itself was an outrageous adventure. It is 19 assists, 12 goals from Rooney Bargi. Matisse Tal playing a lot of the time. I'll show you here on his form. Playing a lot of the time as a left winger, also sometimes as the striker, but playing on the left wing a lot. He scored 26 goals in the league in 33 games. It's 33 goals in all competition, as well as 6 assists and a 7.5 average rating. It's a phenomenal season from him, and just completely complemented by his strike partners. Benjamin Sesko, 24 goals. Nelson Viper, 18 goals. The goals just came from those 3 players, basically. Bargi chipped in 2. I mean, Naipan chipped in with 9 goals. Look, we've got Desiree Doué, can now play as this defensive midfielder. We've got 10 goals from Mosquera because he's massive and he scores headers. This team is brilliant, as outlined by winning the Bundesliga, but also outlined by our run in the Champions League, where we got ourselves through to the semi-finals, only to be beaten by Real Madrid. They just had too much quality once it got to there. But there was a time where we were dreaming of a Champions League final as well as a Bundesliga title. It actually felt more likely that we'd win the Champions League than the Bundesliga at one stage. And then everything just flipped. I didn't actually show you, but that Bayern Munich end to the season is just so un-Bayern. If I show you the schedule, they lost a couple of games here at the end of Feb into March to open the door, drew a game to Cologne, and then just dropped it on the last day. Look, after a great winning run, they just dropped it on the last day and then lost to Dortmund in the Pokal final as well. Just completely it's so un-Bayern-like. And it was actually before this, look, where they started to drop points. 2 draws in a row there, and also a loss to us. Maybe we prompted it. And then 2 other losses in a row, 2 back-to-back losses against Leipzig and then against Nuremberg. And then that was that 5-point gap gone, and we were just there to take advantage. Our end of the season, also brilliant look. Obviously, the Real Madrid losses in there. We lost 2-1 to them at home and then 2-0 away from home. They were just better than us. And then, but in the league, it was the draw against Dortmund. But other than that, we won every game from February the 7th. Look, we drew to Cologne there, but won every game except for Dortmund in the league. And that was enough to lift us to that title. It puts us in an amazing position. It puts us ready to take this now to the very next level. All 3 teams in the Champions League, I want to go and win that Champions League within the next couple of seasons. That's the aim, and that's where we'll pick things up from in the next video. Thank you so much for watching today. I hope you're still really enjoying this. And I hope you enjoy the concept of everything. I want you to ask me questions in the comments down below. If you want to see things, let me know. If you want, I love reading through everything that you guys have got to say. So keep it coming. And I'll be back with another update, the next season of this save, in the next few days. As I mentioned before, if you want to come and watch live, jump over to the Twitch channel. It's twitch.tv/Clayts. It's my name. Just search it on Twitch. You'll find it. And I stream there at about 10 a.m. on Sundays. Come and join the fun whilst we do these things live. Thank you very much for watching today, though. Subscribe to the channel. I'll catch you in the next video. And in the meantime, why don't you go and watch this video that pops up above my head. See you later.